One of the joys of the Easter season is every day, in our first reading, we journey through the Acts of the Apostles. We hear the stories of our ancestors in the faith. You could say our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, and how God used them, how they were filled with the power of the Holy Spirit to spread the truth and the power and the life and the salvation of the gospel to the ends of the earth, to the point where we are the beneficiaries. We are the fruit of their preaching. And so today, we encounter St. Paul in Antioch. As is his custom, he enters the synagogue on the Sabbath and takes his seat. And one of the officials says, "My brothers, if one of you has a word of exhortation for the people, please speak." And St. Paul, of course, takes advantage. And he speaks to his fellow Jews and to other God-fearing men and women. And he tells them their story. He proclaims to them how God chose his people, how he knows and desires them, how he drew them from slavery in Egypt, how he brought them through the Red Sea. He brought them to the Promised Land. He gave them a king. And ultimately brought them Jesus. You know, it's more than just a story that Paul is saying to these people. He's saying to them God's love story. The story of God with them and with us. This story is the story of God's preparation, his courtship, which culminates in Jesus. This story says to the people and to us that Jesus is not a stranger, that he knows them and they know him, that he is true and real and alive. You know, at the end of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus commands us, "Go and make disciples of all nations." He says it not only to his followers then, but to us now. And how do we do that? We can look to St. Paul in today's first reading. And we can ask ourselves, I ask you, what is your story? And I challenge you today to reflect on your story of faith. How and when did God capture your heart? When did Jesus move where you knew there's no one else you can go to? Was it a moment? Was it your whole life? But reflect on that story and share it, because that encounter, that story, is part of God's love story for you and for all his people. And it's not just a story of the past, but it's a story now, because we're in Easter and the tomb is empty and Jesus is risen. And he desires you and he desires me to bring his love and his salvation to the whole world.